November 6, 2003, Wellington Barracks, London. Defence Procurement Minister Lord Back puts pen to paper on a contract worth £166 million, 401 vehicles, an Italian hatchback dressed in armour plate and British electronics. The minister calls it a textbook example of smart acquisition. It looked like a triumph of modern procurement. It looked sensible. It looked affordable. Within 5 years, it would enter service 2 years late. Within 6 years, its commanders were begging for urgent operational replacements. Within 10 years, only 1 in 6 had been made combat ready. Within 15 years, the entire fleet was listed for disposal. Half its intended life unused. Its unit price, once you counted the upgrades, ran to over £700,000, more than some British tanks of the same decade. It was too top-heavy to mount a heavy machine gun. It was too cramped to seat its full crew. It was too fragile to survive the war it was sent to fight. A Conservative Member of Parliament, Ann Winterton, rose in the House of Commons and named it in a single phrase, the Disastrous Panther. Its name was the Panther Command and Liaison Vehicle, and it was the most expensive command car the British Army ever bought for the least war it was designed to fight. To understand why the Panther existed, you need to understand the requirement the British Army wrote in the 1990s. It began life as the Future Family of Light Armoured Vehicles, then narrowed to the Future Command and Liaison Vehicle, or FCLV. The brief was ambitious. It would replace the aging Ferret Scout car, parts of the CVRT family, the FV432 series, the Alvis Saxon, and the soft-skinned Land Rovers used by commanders, sergeant majors, liaison officers, mortar-fire controllers, and radio rebroadcast crews across the manoeuvre support brigades. One vehicle, many roles. On paper it was elegant. In practice it would prove impossible. In June 2001, the Ministry of Defence Down selected 3 bidders. A £1.5 million risk reduction contract put 5 candidates through the Armoured Trials and Development Unit at Bovington: the Alvis Scarab, the South African RG-31 Nyala, the smaller RG-32M Scout, the French ACMAT Ranger, offered by Hunting INSYS, and, belatedly, the Italian Iveco light multi-role vehicle. Defence analyst Richard North alleged that the Iveco entry was introduced after the shortlist had closed, driven by political ambitions to standardise with what would become the European Rapid Reaction Force. The claim has never been formally corroborated. It has never been fully denied either. The Italian vehicle won. On July 17, 2003, Armed Forces Minister Adam Ingram announced the selection. On November 6, 2003, Lord Back signed the £166 million contract at Wellington Barracks for 401 vehicles, with an option for up to 400 more. Ingram called it a good result for the United Kingdom armoured fighting vehicle industry. The hulls were built by Iveco in Bolzano in northern Italy. Only the final mission kit fit-out took place at the old Vickers Works on Scotswood Road, Newcastle upon Tyne. Roughly 35 direct British jobs were sustained by the programme. Underneath the Panther badge sat the Iveco Lince, Italian for Lynx, a 4x4 with a 3,200mm wheelbase, 4.69 metres long, 1.95 metres tall, 6.5 tons empty, rising to over 7 tons once armour. Bowman radios, smoke launchers, and the remote weapon station were fitted. Power came from an Iveco 3.0-litre common rail turbo diesel, producing 182 brake horsepower through a 6-speed automatic gearbox and a full-time transfer box with electro-pneumatic differential lock. Top speed was claimed at 130 km per hour. Range was over 500 km. The defensive suite was where the money went. Every vehicle carried a BAE Systems self-defense weapon station, an uncooled thermal sight, a Thales driver vision enhancer, Bowman tactical radios, a health monitoring system, full fire suppression, and 2 banks of 4 smoke grenade launchers. Armament was a single 7.62mm general-purpose machine gun. A heavier 50 caliber or 40mm grenade launcher option existed on paper. In practice, the vehicle was considered too top-heavy to carry them safely. Crew was listed as 1+3. In reality, the Bowman fit ate so much internal volume that the vehicle was effectively reduced to 3 seats. And the price, £166 million, divided by 401 vehicles, worked out to roughly £413,000 per Panther before support costs. 10 Panthers cost about the same as one Challenger 2 main battle tank of the same decade. A Daily Telegraph review in February 2008 judged the Panther's 1.3-ton payload pretty meagre. Now, before we get into where this vehicle actually fought, and why the soldiers using it came to resent it, if you are enjoying this deep dive into British military procurement, hit subscribe. It takes a second, costs nothing, and helps the channel grow. Programme slippage was steady and visible. Lord Back told Parliament in late 2003 that the in-service date would be 2006. By October 31, 2006, Defence Minister Adam Ingram admitted in a written answer that the date had slipped to November 2007. The actual in-service date landed in June 2008, roughly 2 years behind schedule. The National Audit Office flagged the Panther in its 2006 Major Projects Report as one of 5 programmes with significant in-year delay. Bill Kincaid at the Royal United Services Institute placed it alongside the Type 45 destroyer and the Trojan and Titan engineering vehicles as examples of the same dysfunctional procurement culture. The price criticism cut deepest. Richard North's analysis, built from parliamentary answers, pointed out that the Swedish Army had bought the RG-32M at roughly £152,000 per vehicle. The larger RG-31, with a true V-hull designed to deflect mine blasts, could have been had for around £289,000 each. An equivalent Swedish-style purchase of 410 RG-32M Scouts would have cost roughly £61 million against the £166 million paid for the Italian design. The Irish Army later bought the RG-32M at about £210,000 a unit. It cemented the sense that the Ministry of Defence had paid a premium for the Lince brand. The vehicle's defenders at BAE emphasised the technology. Its detractors saw complexity as the enemy of readiness. The causes were specific: drive by wire controls, complex independent suspension with coaxial shocks, an electronically locked transfer case, central tyre inflation, off-road anti-lock braking, a tightly packed electronics bay that had to accommodate Bowman radios, electronic countermeasures, and the remote weapon station together. BAE ended up being handed a separate £28 million support contract in June 2008, pitched at 90% material availability. It was an admission that the fleet could not stay on the road on its own. By the time the Panther entered service, the British Army was not fighting the kind of war the FCLV requirement had imagined. Iraq had wound down before the Panther could deploy. Operation Telic never saw a Panther on its roads. Afghanistan was a different problem. The base Panther offered only STANAG 4569 Level 1 protection, adequate against 7.62mm ball ammunition at 30 metres, adequate against 155mm fragmentation at 100 metres, hopeless against the buried charges killing British soldiers in Helmand. The fix was an urgent operational requirement. The theatre entry standard upgrade, producing what was called the Panther Protected Command Vehicle, cost roughly £20 million for only 67 of the 401 vehicles, roughly £298,500 each, on top of the £413,000 base price. It added composite armour pushing protection to STANAG Level 3, theatre electronic countermeasures, a rear-view camera, a redesigned air intake, a protected engine compartment, an additional roof hatch, and, tellingly, it restored the 4th crew seat the baseline had lost. Defence Equipment Minister Quentin Davies pronounced it an extremely tough, air-transportable and agile vehicle. The first upgraded Panthers arrived in Helmand on May 12, 2009. The initial operators were not the Army but the RAF Regiment. Photographs record 63 Squadron, the Queen's Colour Squadron, patrolling Kandahar airfield in June 2009. 58 Squadron operated Panthers out of Camp Bastion by August 2011. British Army Close Support Logistics Regiment units followed them in. Combat performance was unhappy. Richard North pointed to the design's reliance on modern automotive crumple zone technology rather than V-hull deflection. The consequence was predictable. Panthers struck by improvised explosive devices tended to be write-offs. An RG-31, by comparison, would more often go back into service. At least one blast-damaged Panther sits today in the Tank Museum's Afghanistan display, its hull twisted and scorched. No British fatalities specifically inside a Panther are publicly documented, but the Italian Lince on which the Panther is based suffered a run of painful losses. A Kabul car bomb on September 17, 2009, killed 6 Italian paratroopers of the 186th Folgore Regiment. A fatal rollover in Afghanistan followed in July 2009. 3 Italian Alpini were killed when a Lince overturned in a river near Shindand in February 2012. British users meanwhile drifted steadily toward the vehicles the troops actually wanted: Mastiff, Ridgeback, Husky, Wolfhound, Jackal, eventually Foxhound. The Panther was left behind in Britain, on training exercises and on gate guard. On paper, the RG-31 and the RG-32M looked less sophisticated than the Italian Lince. In practice, they were cheaper, better protected, and based on proven South African mine-resistant designs forged in decades of bush warfare. The Swedish Army bought the RG-32M and kept it in frontline service. The Irish Army bought it and deployed it abroad without complaint. Britain paid nearly 3 times the unit price for a vehicle whose mine resistance had to be bolted on afterwards, for a fraction of the fleet. The political verdict came from the backbenchers. Ann Winterton made the Panther a personal cause. In a Westminster Hall debate on January 20, 2009, She attacked the wider British pattern of adding armour to convert a vehicle, rather than designing for purpose. On October 27, 2009, she went further. She told the Commons that the Disastrous Panther was part of the overall package, highly complicated, upgraded at enormous cost to try to make it work in Afghanistan, a vehicle that was quite large, probably top-heavy, with no rear exit if it rolled over. The structural critique came from the Bernard Gray Review of October 2009, commissioned by the Secretary of State for Defence. It found that Ministry of Defence projects typically overran by 80% on time and 40% on cost. The Panther sat comfortably inside that indictment. The House of Commons Defence Committee, in reports spanning 2009 to 2021, delivered a broader verdict. Between 1997 and late 2020, the department had not delivered a single new armoured vehicle from the core procurement programme into operational service with the Army. The Panther was not alone, but it was, briefly, the face of the failure. What makes the Panther story stranger than the standard procurement scandal is how it ends, or rather, how it does not. In April 2018, the United Kingdom Defence Equipment Sales Authority listed 395 of the 401 Panthers for sale, barely 10 years into a planned 22-year service life, yet the disposal stalled. A parliamentary written question answered in 2024 confirmed that the out-of-service date for Panther had been pushed back to 2037, extended from an original date of 2030. The fleet still rotates through NATO exercises, Operation Cabrit in Estonia, Exercise Steadfast Defender in Poland, Trident Juncture in Spain, Shamal Storm in Jordan with the Royal Tank Regiment's Falcon Armoured Support Reconnaissance Squadron. No publicly documented evidence supports a British Panther donation to Ukraine. The wider Lince family has flowed east without it. Norway donated 14 Iveco vehicles to Ukraine on July 29, 2022. Italy transferred Lince vehicles from 2022 onward. Belgium contributed further examples inside a €92 million aid package in January 2023. The British Panthers have stayed home. November 6, 2003, Wellington Barracks, London. Lord Back signs a contract he calls a textbook example of smart acquisition. 401 Italian vehicles dressed in British electronics, bought for a war against Soviet manoeuvre forces that had already ended. The Panther was not fast enough off-road to match a Land Rover. It was not cheap enough to buy in numbers. It was not well armoured enough to face a buried charge in Helmand without being rebuilt at £300,000 a vehicle. It was not spacious enough to seat the crew its own requirement demanded. It was not tough enough to roll over without trapping the men inside. And yet, it sits today, still on the books, still on NATO exercises, still waiting for a replacement that may not arrive before 2037, a vehicle bought for a war it never fought, delivered late, upgraded expensively, used sparingly, preserved indefinitely. The Panther was not designed, it was procured, and therein lies the difference between an army that wins wars and a ministry that signs contracts.